Hello friends, I'm going to share my story of my career journey so far with you. This video will be about 30 minutes plus, so please have a patience if you will to hope you will find it very interesting. So please remain with me for 30 minutes or so, and afterwards if you like share, I like to hear your story as well. So let us begin. My name is Akshat Agarwal and I did my bachelor's in metallurgical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Banaras Hindu University, which is the premier engineering institute in India. The entrance examination of IIT BHU is through All India Joint Entrance Examination. So I got selected among the top 2% of All India competition for the entrance exam in 1990, where about 200,000 students, about 2 lakhs students participated. So I stood among the top 2%, and I selected metallurgical engineering because of suggestions of my relatives who are in the same field actually, including my brother, real brother. And afterwards I did my master's from the IIT Kanpur in 96, and I got selected through the campus interview for Indian Oil Corporation. So I joined Baroda Refinery, one of the oldest in India at that time, as an inspection and corrosion engineer in 1996, after completing my master's degree and a research project on the physical metallurgy. So in the brief period of I was in Indian Oil Corporation, I worked in Baroda Refinery, and subsequently I was promoted and transferred to Panipat Refinery in year 2000 as a senior engineer. So I worked in Baroda Refinery and Panipat Refinery from 1996 to 2003. And I got exposed to various processing units and utilities and offsites, including the storage tanks and pipelines, rundown pipelines, to the LPG depot and fueling station. So in this brief period, I developed the on-stream inspection corrosion monitoring checklist, inspection formats for the equipment, checklist for the mechanical completion of piping fabrication work. I developed the inspection tools and gadgets manual. I developed the inspection manual, ISO documentation and manual. Indian Oil was the ISO certified, ISO 9001 and 14001 certified company. So all the working procedures were captured in the inspection manual, which we prepared. I did the regulatory compliance and coordinated for the boilers inspection. Under the Indian Factories Act and Indian Boilers Act. Then we implemented SAP in Indian Oil in year 2000 in Panipat Refinery. and RBI, risk-based inspection methodology we adopted in-house, and we prioritized the inspection based on the risks. I also got a chance to involve in many revamp and upgradation projects due to the Euronorm 2 was adopted that time for the emissions, greenhouse gases emissions. So we had a redundant sulfur recovery block in Baroda refinery, which was constructed by Petrofac, and we had the standby sulfur recovery block in Panipat refinery. And there were several revamps, modifications were taking place due to the change of crude. Earlier we were processing the Bombay high crude, then we went to the Arabian crude, which was highly sour and having high naphthenic acid content. So in my 7 years of career, I got involved in those construction audit and quality assurance, quality control activities of all these revamp and modification projects. 2003, I got a chance. Before I go there, I would like to share my experience of working with Indian Oil Corporation briefly. After doing IIT, our outlook was to become quickly manager, get a managerial position, because we were considered the topmost brass or product from the top institutes of India. So during the placement talk itself, we were promised to become a manager within the 7 years. But eventually, as usual, means I should say that it did not implement. They could not implement this. So normally, people used to become manager after four promotions, spanning 3 to 4 years. So altogether, 15 years at least to become a manager. And they wanted to change the culture, work culture, and they recruited the first time through campus interview an IITians batch. So mine was the first batch of IITians they recruited with the promise of making us managers within 7 years. And so my experience of working with Indian oil corporations, because most of these refineries are constructed in the land acquired from the local peasants or farming communities, with a promise to award them a contract afterwards and give them some employment within the refineries. So most of the contractors I was dealing with, whether it is during the shutdown or regular painting contracts, welding inspectors, welders, they were the peasants or farmers community. So naturally they were underqualified. They were not diploma holders or well-trained people. So I used to have a very tough time with those contractors in the field. And as such, the work of inspector, going inside the pressure vessels, boilers, heaters, climbing up the monkey ladders, and the scaffoldings was a very tough. And as the usual tendency, we want to just become not a blue collar worker, but a white collar person sitting on the table with the suit in the suit and ties. So naturally, I got frustrated initially by this kind of work culture, poking my head all the time with the contractors who were totally untrained, whether it is a welder, painter, or any other, like a heat exchanger, hydro test, or anything I used to witness. I come across these people who were totally unqualified. They were not knowing what they are doing actually, including the gasket cutting, asbestos gasket, which used to put on the flanges, and there were a lot of leaks from the exchangers. And I was going to witness the exchanger and see leaks from here and there. But these were the totally unqualified people I was dealing with. So naturally, I had a very tough time in the field. And I expressed this to my bosses. It was the public sector unit, oil and gas was the national company. So nobody can fire anyone. Means the position was more or less secured, government position. But the culture was was prevalent of favoritism and lot of, as you know, the work culture was not very healthy. People used to, because of the internal politics, which we will discuss subsequently a little bit, how I dealt with it, how I evolved with it. So the work culture was definitely it was prevailing of command and control still. The people were though job was secured, but people were under threat of promotions, getting timely promotions, and getting cornered or gaslighting you, because it's kind of a few bosses used to be very narcissistic kind of behavior, putting their subordinates down all the time. This kind of culture was prevailing. I got a mentorship or very good boss actually. He told, see, what I am experiencing is nothing new. They have even gone through worst experience in their lives. He told that just Akshat, just work for 7 to 10 years in the field. Whatever good or bad experience you will have in the field, that will form a very strong foundation for your career. And this is the guy his name was Mr. Narendra Pandey, who is now retired. Due to his guidance and mentorship, I continued for 7+ years in Indian Oil Corporation. Otherwise, I would have quit earlier. And in fact, I tried to switch over to software field by taking some software courses. I wrote some management exam also, which I could not clear, of course. So somehow I continued with Indian Oil Corporation for 7 years. But those 7 years laid the foundation of my career, which is very solid experience, I must say. So 2003, when I got opportunity to join the Kuwait National Petroleum, Mina Abdullah Refinery, as he suggested, after 7 years, due to their recommendations only, I got this opportunity. and I moved to out of India in 2003, just about 20 years back. So about 5 years I worked there till 2007. And after gaining about 11 years of experience, I started gaining some weight, and my children were not having a good time in Kuwait because of the dusty weather there. So my son was having he became asthmatic. Every alternate months we were giving him strong doses of antibiotics, and we had to give some time steroid also to him. In 2007, my wife also started losing weight drastically, and she became deficient in some vitamins and lactose intolerance and some digestion issues. And I was gaining weight, and I find it very hard that time to started feeling that climbing the monkey ladder was not as easy for me any longer as it used to be. In Indian Oil Corporation, they labeled me as a air wing guy who will always climb the monkey ladders, and they were giving me always all the columns. So columns means up to 16th floor up and down all the time. In the day, 10 times up, 10 times down during shutdown. So I used to enter all the columns for inspection. And so then I decided to, that time in around 2005, many people from Kuwait were moving to Canada. Just before the subprime crisis of 2008, there was a market up and down in oil and gas sector. So oil and gas sector was booming, and many people had a very good opportunity to go to Canada, and I got inspired. So 2005, I started improving my English language to clear the TOEFL and IELTS, and I wrote GMAT also, because and I applied for permanent residency of Canada in Kuwait. And I joined the Toastmasters Club to improve my public communication skills and leadership skills. They had a 2-channel. One is the Competent Communicator Manual, which has the 10 projects, and other is the leadership building skill by taking some roles in the club. So I completed the 10 speeches, Competent Communicator Manual, and which significantly improved my communication skills. And wrote TOEFL and GMAT. Again, I could not secure a good percentile in English language, though my quantitative I did very well. So eventually 2007 I moved to Abu Dhabi, and that was a turning point. I moved to the EPC side, first time in the city, away from the plant life, and I as a senior materials and corrosion engineer. It was October 2007, and next year there was a subprime crisis in the other part of world, but there was a lot of major projects in Abu Dhabi. So 2000, there was a talk that time that peak oil scenario is already there. Most of the oil and gas reservoirs are maturing, and there was enhanced oil recovery projects with the water flooding, secondary processing basically, by flooding the water flooding the reservoir to generate the pressure so that the remaining oil or can come out. So water flooding. So I worked on the upstream. From the downstream, I came on the upstream side, did some onshore and offshore projects as well with the NDOC group, Gasco, ADCO, ADGAS, ZATCO, and I started learning about the project management and engineering management first time. So next, I worked with Technip, which laid my foundation, and I learned quite a bit with their robust engineering system of project management also system, about the interdepartment working procedures, DWP, interdisciplinary checks, IDC procedures, their engineering manual as such, their project management practices. So that was quite a good learning and foundation for me from Technip about materials and corrosion engineering. That time, the concept, 2003, there was a major change in the corrosion field. And all the standards were changed, and we moved towards the risk-based design concepts, which was implemented for every discipline. Earlier, it was only people who were doing the process hazard analysis or HAZOP. But now every discipline were doing the risk-based design. So my job was to select the material and selection based on the corrosion risk assessment and risk-based inspection. So risk-based inspection, as we already discussed, we implemented in Indian Oil Corporation way back in 2000. And then in KNPC, we hired a Shell employee, retired employee, to implement RBI in KNPC. So when I joined Technip, I developed the protocol for corrosion risk assessment. People were confused between these two terminologies. What is corrosion risk assessment and what is risk-based inspection? So as such, what is corrosion, what is inspection? So those, I developed the system and procedures there. Since I came from the field background, I could have a different perspective, and which was lacking somewhat in the engineering company. Most of the people were not having a solid foundation, as we discussed earlier, field experience as a technologist. So becoming an engineer directly without becoming a technologist or technician in the field, then you don't appreciate actually what is the challenges. Then you are mostly theoretical kind of person without any solid practical experience firsthand. So I could do the corrosion risk assessment not just based on software. People were very fond of engineering software that time, and still is, without realizing or having a good, solid, first-hand field experience. So that, what I discussed with my ex-mentor and boss, Mr. Narendra Pandey, that started paying off in my career. And I became favorite of engineering directors to sort out these complicated issues with the clients, which was taking back the operations and maintenance experience in the design. So I worked with the Technip, Mott MacDonald, NPCC, and with Simon Carves for a short period. for petrochemical project and chemical project, sulfuric acid plant, polyethylene plants, apart from upstream oil and gas. And apart from EPC, conventional engineering, procurement, construction, I worked with Mott MacDonald, where I came across project management consultancy first time. And the project was awarded, there was a Takrir refinery expansion was going on. And Mott was the project management consultant. Contractor was Samsung, Korea. That time, 2000. So during the subprime crisis, the Korea emerged as a center of engineering. And most of the contracts, detailed engineering contracts, construction contracts, were awarded to Korean companies. SG Engineering, Samsung, and others. So when as I already discussed, I applied for permanent residency in Kuwait itself. And due to subprime crisis of 2008, 2009 I got the PR of Canada. But since due to downturn in the industry in Americas, it was not good. I had a very lucrative career in Abu Dhabi. So I decided not to move to Canada. I made a preliminary trip, moved around, see the places with the family, and came back and decided to continue in Abu Dhabi. But in 2011, there was a small recovery period, 2011, 12, 13. About 2 years, a small recovery. So one friend of mine, ex-IOCL, he called me from Canada that there is a good opportunity, you please come. And that's how I ended up quickly. Within a month period, I decided and wind up everything from Abu Dhabi, moved with the family to Toronto initially. And as we know that Alberta is the oil and gas hub in Canada. So within 2-3 months, I got a call from Calgary to join Jacobs Engineering. Now, my experience of Canada since 2011, and till 2022, end of 2022, about 11 years I spent in Canada, working with different engineering companies and primarily with Suncor Energy. In 2012, I got an opportunity to work directly with the Suncor Energy, which merged with the Petro-Canada earlier, and they were unifying the standards, mergers and acquisitions, those were taking place. New scenario was emerging for oil and gas sector with the integrated operations. Integrated means upstream, downstream, one company, which happened in Middle East also. KOC, KNPC merged together. ADNOC Group, there were a lot of changes, and there is only one entity now. So those integrated operations became the norm. Petro-Canada merged with Suncor Energy. They hired me in their corporate team to develop the corporate technical standards for materials and corrosion. I was part of their standard technical expert network, what they call is a STEN network, who is coordinating with all the business units. And they were having the business units from Fort McMurray, Edmonton, Denver, Mississauga, and Mississauga and this one, 4 or 5 business units. So I was interacting with all those people on the weekly STEN meeting. So there was a communication protocol well in place about this STEN network. where the SMEs, subject matter experts, were interacting from different over the video call every week to share their experience and to develop a standard, corporate technical standard. So this was under the framework of operational excellence and technical services. Giving priority to health, safety, and environment. As we discussed earlier, the environmental consciousness was increasingly playing a role that time. And we started implementing HSE. HSE emerged as a health, safety, environment, process safety, and corrosion risk assessment, risk-based inspection. These emerged as a key activities of the projects activities, key deliverables. Some of the company projects, companies asked for the independent third body review of these key deliverables by DNVs and other audit agencies. But mostly in many of projects in Canada, they were not doing that, any third-party audits of the project. So I got involved in Suncor Energy in 2012 and 13 in Fort Hills project, McTie River projects, and Fireback projects. These three projects from the client side now, for the reviewing of their material selection report from the client side and giving approvals for deviation management, because I was in the corporate technical standard team. But that good period lasted only till mid of 2013, and they lost a major $13 billion project, Voyager project, jointly with the ConocoPhillips. ConocoPhillips pulled out, and then Suncor Energy started downsizing and laying off people. I got affected, and after losing that lucrative job and having lot of issues in the new country for establishing my family, providing good education to my children, and also I purchased the house. So I was having a huge mortgage to pay and support my family. Then I moved to Oman. I got a very good opportunity here. So 2014-15, Wally Parsons called me here. They outsourced me to PDO for short duration, about 3 months or so. And I joined the PDO UEOC team for developing the concept selection report, material selection reviews for the soaring assets, if there any change of material required or not. And they were developing their main standard SP2161, which I participated closely with them, with the Shell employee, Mr. Pedro Rincon, Steve Jones. I had a very good opportunity to work with them. These were the real experts in the field from the Shell Netherlands. And then Rabab Harwil integrated project, which is a tertiary project, tertiary recovery. Earlier I discussed about the enhanced oil recovery project, secondary processing mostly, which I had experience in Abu Dhabi. In Canada, I had experience dealing with the sand oil projects like Athabasca Oil, Fort Hills, Fireback, so which is a SAGD project, right? Steam assisted gravity separation. They used to inject the steam to recover the oil. And now I was dealing here tertiary recovery, which is almost similar, steam injection or chemical injection for the enhanced oil recovery. So Rabab Harwil was the very waxy crude. It was the most complex project in that regard. So I want to share some experience about Canada I skipped. About 11 years living in Canada, what challenges I face in the workplace. Those 11 years were before coming, briefly in 2014-15 I had a stint in, short stint in Oman. But virtually in 11 years in Canada was my transformative years, I would say. Since 2007 to 2015, end of 2015, about 8 years in project field, I did lot of major multi-billion-dollar oil and gas field development projects, onshore, offshore. Which was mostly, project management style was mostly waterfall type in Abu Dhabi, where the project manager used to be in full command and control of the project. And from engineering disciplines, the engineers were deputed to a project team used to be made for every major project. And engineering department managers used to assign a lead project engineer to those projects, every discipline. Right? So under this waterfall technology, it was kind of not a matrix structure. So when I moved to Canada, they were following the matrix management style, in which there is no one boss. You are reporting like a grid. There is a nodal point grid, we understand, right? Grid. In every nodal point, everybody who is reporting to whom is not well defined. So you are part of a standard committee, you are a part of a business, you are supposed to support the business units, you are reviewing the project documents. So project manager is also your boss, your department manager, of course, your boss, and every unit or business units, wherever it is, Edmonton or Sarnia or Denver or Fort Mac. So everybody giving the feedback and performance reviews based on the feedback from everyone. So I could not figure it out because I was used to well-defined system and procedures, and I was not used to this matrix style of management. Soon after joining Suncor Energy in 2012, they gave me a training of change management. And how to resolve a conflicts, which was a part of it. Conflict resolution. Having said all these things, change management, performance review, expert network, all these very good practices, what they are following, operational excellence practices. On the ground, again, it was same kind of a culture of taking advantage of the expatriates or immigrants and using it for their skin saving and get rid of them when they start exposing the game. So there were a lot of pressure to compromise on the engineering practices. Even though they were having the professional bodies, the engineering profession was regulated in Canada what it means that we have to get a professional engineering license to become engineers. And people not following the professional ethics and law must be barred from practicing engineering. But suppose if I'm a whistleblower, so any whistleblower in the organization, even if they are not protected by the law, by the professional body, if they complain to professional body, like one time I consulted the professional body, they were asking me to, in 2011, they were asking me to use the 2003 standards for the sour corrosion, sour materials, materials in the sour service. So I consulted the EPSA, which is now NEA, National Energy Association. So I consulted them whether can we follow 2003 standard instead of latest 2011. And the response came, it is your engineering judgment which standard you follow. So as per my own engineering judgment, I discarded the old one because there were substantial changes, as we know, for the materials in sour service, particularly HIC testing, HIC resistant steel, not only HIC testing, but whole process of steel making itself to obtain a properties which is corrosion resistant. So when I tried to implement then, obviously project manager, there were a lot of pressures. Department manager also exerted a lot of pressure. They said, no, the vendors cannot supply these materials, the Canadian vendors, because they are following the 2003 standard. So then why the project design basis is saying to follow the latest standards and highlight the risk if we follow any old standard. So let me highlight the risk. And there is something called project deviation requests. So I filled they call it PDN, project deviation notes. So I highlighted the risk and asked them to sign. And they called a meeting, my project manager and my department manager, and they asked me to force me to take those notes back. So these kind of challenges, scenarios was very common when I was reviewing the Fort Hills Fireback material selection reports. I made my comments. Without incorporating those comments, they asked me to come and sign the final reports. And there was a lot of tussle on that. When my comments were not incorporated, how can I sign? And I was not supposed to sign because I was not a part of their peer review team. I was just doing the high level review, what they call the cold eye review, because I was in their corporate technical standard team to develop the best practices or standards. So this kind of command and control structure was still followed in Canada also, which only changed post-COVID. There was a tremendous change in the project management. From 2022, the Project Management Institute started changing the curriculum altogether for the PMP exam. Earlier, the emphasis was PMP Manual 6 edition, which was very comprehensive, of about 800 pages or so, in which the waterfall technology, methodology of project management of same command and control, where the processes and tools, project management tools and processes were very important or focused on the earlier the waterfall methodology was focused around the processes, project management processes and tools, but now the emphasis lies on the not on project management but leadership, what they call the agile values and principles. There are 4 core values, 10 principles under this framework. And if you remember, since I am coming from India, very rich cultural and very old culture and philosophy, and so same kind of rules of humanity rules which was laid down by Lord Buddha and earlier times, do's and don'ts to become a good citizen or good human being. So what is leadership all about? Laying emphasis on your professional conduct, not only ethics. Earlier it was laying emphasis on professional ethics and laws, that you have to care for environment and all. Now project leader is supposed to lead the ESG, environmental, social and governance stewardship. Project manager is supposed to follow the conduct which is cutting across the politics, work culture, workplace politics, backbiting, misrepresenting someone that he said this, though he pulling somebody down, and all those kind of things, to put the person down, to put him under the pressure, force him to sign something so that things move quickly. So after that, there was tremendous changes in the activities of professional bodies. I'm a member of Professional Engineer Ontario. I did not pay my dues for the Professional Engineers Alberta now, which I have to reinstate once I get a job there, if in future I do any work. But I am continuing my membership with the Professional Engineer Ontario, which requires the continuous development credits, 30 credits to obtain. And with renewed vigor, they are implementing professional ethics and environment. Every year I have to retake those, review those ethical requirements and laws. Project Management Institute is the curriculum of PMP, as I mentioned, from earlier Manual 6 to Agile Framework, which is only 300 pages, which lays emphasis basically on the values and principles is based on. Is our life governed around values and principles? Do we uphold the professionalism in our workplace? Or we are the part of the same culture of putting someone down? Coming back to Oman, end of 2022, I worked with a couple of companies, and I realized that these concepts of change management concepts, of leadership concepts, have not adopted here still. They are still based on traditional command and control by the project management team. So I was invited by some of my friends quickly here when I came here. They updated me about the culture, workplace culture, what we call the pre-placement interview. If you join a company, it is always a good to know about the work culture of that company. What politics is taking place, what people, how much satisfied they are at work, what is our culture, who are the people, key people in domination, in command, who are the good people around to network. So, no doubt the cultural understanding, the local cultural understanding is very, very important for the conflict resolution. That is one, my learning. Second learning, upholding on the professionalism, professional conduct, apart from professional ethics and law. Of course, following the professional ethics and laws are very important, but more important than that is the personal integrity, what makes you a good human being. I will not use the word leadership here because leadership is synonymous with Hitler or Mussolini. I'm not talking about that kind of fascist ideology or leaders. Very mighty, very fearful. I'm not talking about those kind of leadership. Because I came from the country where the different kind of leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, from the childhood I cherished that. So my values and principles is based upon the truth and non-violence. I will never to misuse my position, power or knowledge to put someone down. That is my basic bottom line. In this culture I was brought up. I faced my 30 years, almost 30 years of my career, many challenging environment, coming across very good people from different cultures. But at the same time, I faced the work culture politics, which forced me to change my career or companies, leave one country. So I changed so many companies, particularly after joining the project site in 2007. I worked with all major EPC companies across the region, in Middle East, Canada, America. Now at this stage, when I am starting my own company, I just want to share with you, I shared my story with you, career journey, what I want to establish in future, coming from the background, whatever learned, good and bad practices to implement that, good practices in the and uphold on top of everything the professionalism, or you call it professional conduct, behavior. And with this I would like to end, and I like to hear from you, and you can be rest assured whatever assistance I could provide, support I could provide, services I could provide, just like come forward and share your experience with me and try to collaborate. Let us work together for the better future. Thank you.